Welcome everyone. So this is the first chapter on Intro to Statistics, Math 135. In this first chapter, we are going to look at some basic terms related to statistics. You may have your note catcher handy so that you can look at it as I go through the note catcher, through the PowerPoint. If you don't have the note catcher now, you can make it ready later on and make it ready for next class. So as we are working on a lot of fundamental terminology in statistics here, we are going to start with the first one. It is the definition of statistics. So when we say statistics, what is that? Statistics is the branch of mathematics that deals with the scientific method of collecting, organizing, summarizing, presenting, and analyzing data, as well as drawing valid conclusion and making reasonable decision based on such analysis. So in statistics, what we do is we collect the data. So when I'm talking about collection of data, it can be data about, for example, about your age, maybe the data about your height, maybe the data about your GPA, the current GPA that you have at CCA. So we can collect the data. It can be, as I said, age, height, or GPA, or any other thing. And then once I have the data, we can organize the data in a proper format. So organizing the data. And after we organize the data, we can summarize the data. When I say summary of the data, maybe the average height of students in my class is this much. So I can find something like average, or I can find something like the standard deviation and things like that. That is summarizing the data. And once we summarize the data, we'll be able to present it well. We can draw the diagrams, we can make the graphs, we can make the pie chart, and we can present the data. And we do all this in order to analyze the data to make a valid conclusion. So maybe I have the data of this small group of students in my class, but I can use this data to make a reasonable decision about the whole body of student at CCA, which is called the population in this case. So by calculating your average from this class, I'll be able to predict the average age of a student at CCA, or average height of a student at CCA, average GPA of a student at CCA. So all these things can be done using statistics. That's why statistics is the branch of mathematics that deals with the scientific method of collecting, organizing, summarizing, presenting, and analyzing data, as well as drawing valid conclusion and making reasonable decision based on such analysis. Statistics, they are of two types. One is called the descriptive statistics. The other one is called the inferential statistics. Now, when I say descriptive statistics, it consists of the collection of data, organization of data, summarization of data, and presentation of data. So it is just collecting the data, finding the summary of the data like mean, median, mode, standard deviation, and things like that, and then presenting the data. So that first part of the statistics, it is called the descriptive statistics. Whereas the second part of the statistics is called the inferential statistics. In inferential statistics, what we do is we use the result from the sample from a small group and make informed decision about the entire population. That is the inferential statistics. So we say inferential statistics consists of generalization from sample to population, performing estimations and hypothesis test, determining relationships among the variable, and making prediction. So mostly in interpretation of the data, we use the inferential statistics. Inferential statistics use two important things. One is called the probability. We'll talk about probability later on. And also hypothesis testing to make the decision or the inferences about the population. So in this slide, we talk about statistics and two different branches of statistics. Okay, next thing that we are going to explore here, they are called the variable, data, population, and sample. When I say variable, it's the characteristic or attribute that can assume different value. I was giving you the example when I was collecting the data, I was talking about age, I was talking about height, I was talking about GPA. These are variables, age, height, GPA, these are variables because they can assume different values. When I talk about age, you may say I'm 17, I'm 18, I'm 22, I'm 25, and so on. It can take different values. So that is an example of variable. If I say height, then you will say I am 4'9", I am 5, I'm 5'7", and so on. You will have different values for the height. So that is a variable. If I ask you about your GPA, the current GPA at CCA, maybe you'll say I have 3.4, I have 3.7, I have 4.0, and so on. So you have different values. That is your variable. So variable whose values are determined by chance are called the random variable. Later on, when we start working on the inferential statistics, we'll be using this a lot. If the variable is determined using some probability experiment or by some random chances, that is called the random variable. That is about variable. Now, data are the values obtained from the measurement or observation of the variable, or the variable's measurement, you can say. That's called data. For example, I told you age is the variable. So the data could be 18 years, 20 years, 25 years. That is the data. Height is the variable. So the data could be 5 inch, 5'7", 5'9". That is the data. GPA is the variable. So the data could be 3.5, 3.7, 4.0, and so on. Those are data. So this is two important things, variable and data. Now, let's explore two more terms, population and sample. Before we go to that, in real world, we'll not be able to collect data from everything or every individual under consideration. If I want to collect the age of everyone at CCA, it is practically impossible because there are a lot of students at CCA. So what I'll do is, instead of looking at everyone at CCA, I'll take a small section of that over here, and I'll find the age of these students only. So we collect a sample or the subset of that, and then we get the information from here. So when I say population, is the collection of all subjects or individuals that are being considered in the study. Everyone considered under the study, that is the population. Whereas the sample, it is a small subset of that, which is the representation of the population. So those are four important terms that you need to know: variable, data, population, and sample. Difference between population and sample. There are key differences that we need to know between population and sample. As I mentioned already, the population is the complete set. I'm looking at the second point here. The population is the complete set. Everyone at CCA, every student at CCA, that is your population. Whereas sample is the small subset of that. The group of student from where I'm collecting the data, that is a sample. That is the example of sample. Okay. And when we have the sample, we'll be able to find the mean, we'll be able to find the standard deviation, and so on. So those measurable quantity that we obtain from the sample, it is called a statistic. Look at the spelling, statistic, only statistic, okay? Not statistics. Statistic is the measurable quantity that we obtain from the sample. Like the sample mean is X bar, sample standard deviation is S. We use the English alphabet to represent the statistic. Whereas in case of population, the measurement of the quantity or measurable quantity for the population, they are called the parameters. So population parameter, for example, for the mean, it is mu. This is Greek letter mu. We use Greek letter. In place of English alphabet, we use the Greek alphabet, mu. Population standard deviation, we use this sigma. This is the lowercase sigma in Greek letter. That is for standard deviation. So you can see the difference. For the population, the measurable quantity are called parameter. For the sample, the measurable quantity are called statistic. Parameters are represented by Greek letter, whereas the statistic is represented by the English alphabet. Population is everything under consideration, whereas sample is the small section of the population, small subset of population. When we find the parameter, it is the true representation of the opinion. It is the true mean or true standard deviation. This is the exact mean. This is the exact standard deviation of the entire population. So it is a true representation. Whereas if we take a sample and find the average or find the standard deviation, the actual average can be a little bit more or less than that. That's why we say the reports or the statistic that we calculate, they have margin of error. It can be a little bit more or a little bit less than that. That's why we say there is a margin of error on that. And also we use some confidence interval to measure that, like 5%, plus minus 5%, we'll say something like that. So you'll see the margin of error in statistic. But in case of parameter, they are the true opinion. So they are the exact values. Population contains all members of a specific group. We are talking about everyone in the group. Whereas in case of sample, it is only a small section or a small subset that represents the entire population. So these are the key differences between population and sample.